Right.
Is there anyone there?
Our participants are trickling in.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I was going to say, what if nobody comes? Oh, yeah, 10, 11, 12. Oh.
So it seems like we're starting to level off, but we can give it maybe one more minute and then we can get started. Does that sound good to all my panelists?
Mm-hmm. Sure. You tell Christy that George is here. Christy, George is on, but as a participant, I'm not, or as a what is it, attendee? So I don't know. Call-in listener. I can. Do you want to call him and tell him to join as a panelist?
I am going to promote him to a panelist.
Oh, perfect. That's great.
Let's see if that works. So I see his name popped up.
Now we just see if we can see
him.
So we back in, or you can see him. Okay. You got him? Evie's over. Oh, there he is. Oh. Hi, George. Hi, George. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, everyone. Well, I think we'll get started. So I think we've started recording. So welcome, 10th grade families. I am Christy Carrero. I am the 10th grade assistant principal. And I am just honored and thrilled to continue to be working with all of your children this year. You know, last year I know ended obviously much different than all of us expected. But this year I think is off to a great start. And I know, again, a little bit different, but I'm so excited to have all of my sophomores back on Tuesday. So I'm really looking forward to that. I just wanted to, you know, remind everyone that I am a resource for everyone. So never hesitate to reach out to me at any time. I'm here to help your children, you be a support system, work together, we're a team. And I love all your children. So thanks for sharing them with me and letting me be a part of their academic journey at New Canaan High School. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight and be a part of this event. So I am going to pass it on to Amy Ravanisi and Jen Laddick, your 10th grade networking co-chairs, so they can start our journey on the roadmap to safe driving.
Thank you, Christy. So, hi everyone, my name's Amy Ravanisi. I'm here with Jen Laddick. We are thrilled to be the networking co-chairs for the 10th grade this year. My 10th grader is Ned Ravanisi, and he was born in town, went through South, went through Saks, and now is at the high school. I can't believe he's going to be driving. So when I was asked last year to help, I really thought this was a great thing to do because Ned is my oldest. And I came to every one of these last year because I didn't know anything about freshman year, and now I don't know anything about sophomore year and all these things like driving. So we hope to have a very informative panel tonight. Jen Laddick and I both have the sophomores. They were in preschool together and now we're sophomores together, which is kind of crazy. And we're just excited to be doing this and hopefully bringing you some useful information this year. This evening we have two speakers on the panel. Ms. Marie Trant from Lewis School of Driving here in New Canaan and Officer Caponera from the New Canaan Police Department. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have a third speaker this evening, Mr. Tim Brown from Brown Thayer Shed Insurance, but his work has called him away, so he wasn't able to join. If you are interested in seeing what he has to say, we do have last year's link up on our PFA website. And he may be also getting together some materials that we'll have available for you going forward for this year as well. So I first wanted to begin with introducing Marie. Marie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Marie is the owner of Lewis School of Driving, and she purchased the business from her stepfather, Chester R. Lewis Jr., who founded the company in 1970 after retiring as a sergeant from the New Canaan Police Department. Marie carries on the family business today, teaching students to drive safely and responsibly in our town. Marie will now discuss how the Lewis School of Driving can help parents and students prepare for this new, exciting, and somewhat disconcerting time in our lives. Marie, go ahead.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome. I'm used to a Zoom format where I see all the faces of the participants, so it's peculiar not seeing except the panelists. But I have a slideshow that I sort of put up there to make things a little accessible, and we'll share it with the panelists and you guys so you have it. Because there's a lot to talk about, and it's a big year. Some of you probably have your permits already. Some of you might not. Some of you parents have done this before. Some of you are first time doing this. So I'll try and address as much as I can, and always here to help you guys. And I'm going to share my page. There is a quick little video in it. It's all but 3 minutes, so it's not very long, but I'll get started right now. So hopefully everybody can see this, but I will talk through it to you anyway. So the first thing is getting a permit in order to get a license in the state of Connecticut. You can't legally drive until you get a permit. And to get a permit, you have to pass a 25-question knowledge test. And that test is pretty tough. I find a lot of the students are just studying the app, and the app is not enough to get you prepared for the test. You need to study the driver's manual. There is a link on the DMV website for it, and also on our website, okay? So it's right there. It's embedded in the information that I have, in the presentation here. So it will be easily accessible, and even just go to our website. There's also this app. I do find a lot of people upload apps that they are paying for. That's not the one you need. The DMV app does not charge, and it looks like that. Again, this is all embedded in the information, okay? What is very helpful, I think, that maybe you parents don't know, even if you've done it before, the DMV have a really nice parent guide on their website. And it's very comprehensive. I'll just fly through it for a quick moment, but it just shows you some basics, how to teach them how to do a left-hand turn, a right-hand turn, and it goes over some restrictions. And it shows you how many hours you should spend on something. It's a pretty big document, 32 pages. And it's on this. I'm not going to go through it with you at the moment, but it's very helpful and very supportive of your goal, which is to teach your kid to drive. So getting the permit, a couple of things that I find parents are having a problem with. Oh my gosh, I have a fly flying around me. It's like that interview the other night. In order to schedule an appointment, you go onto the DMV website. It's pretty user-friendly, and you schedule your appointment for your permit. Study the book, get everything ready. When you show up at the DMV, I do find some people don't have all the documents, and it's not, the DMV are not going to say, it's okay, let me hold on and I'll get you a next number in line. No, 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 go home and come back. So you need your either birth cert or passport, original or certified copy. you need the actual Social Security card. There is no replacement unless your kid has a job and they have a W-2 or a 1099. That's it. They will not test them with just the number. So that's one of the key ones. And then 2 pieces of mail showing residency in the state of Connecticut. And that's can be addressed to you as a parent because, you know, the kids don't get that much mail that's postmarked anyway. So a bill, bank statement, stuff like that. And then just another little trick, when you go down there, go in the side door. There's a separate door. It's actually on the main Ave side, and it's just for permit testing. So it's much nicer than going into that big corral in the beginning that many of us have been in. Go around, and it's a quick, easy test process. And then they do an eye test too, so be prepared for that. So then once you get that test, the permit, a couple of things have to happen. You have to have a minimum of 40 road hours. That is state mandate. Minimum of 40. I'm going to tell you right up front, it takes probably more 80 to 100 to really get your kids to a point of safety and success. 40 is a minimum. I mean, a minimum, they're getting their license, driving this vehicle, a weapon. Minimum's not where we should be at. So that bar really needs to be raised, but the state minimum is 40. And new permit holders need to do one of 2 things. There's a few in between, but there's the full course, which is 30 class hours of driving, 30 class hours, and it includes a 2-hour parent class. There's 8 hours of driving, and then there's road time at home, okay? And once you get to that point, you're eligible to get your license after you've had your permit 120 days. Okay, that's the one that also makes you eligible for any insurance discounts. The other option is you just take the 8-hour drug and alcohol course, and that's a minimum of an 8-hour safe driving course, and it also includes the 2-hour parent class, and then you have to wait 180 days to get your license. So they're the 2 extremes. There's many in between. Under permit, there are no passenger restrictions with regard to your parents. Both can be in there, but there are passenger restrictions for anybody else in the car. No siblings can be in the car when you're learning to drive, unless that siblings had their license for 4 years or more and it hasn't been suspended, okay? And under permit, you don't have night restrictions. Under license, you do, but under permit, you don't. You can drive out of the state with your Connecticut permit. Just check with the state you're driving in to make sure that they allow 16-year-old drivers to drive. And this is this quick little video that I'm just going to quickly put on for you here.
Your new teen driver has a newfound sense of freedom, but they really need a dose of reality from you. Getting a new license starts an incredibly dangerous time for teens. After they go from supervised to unsupervised driving, they are 30 times as likely to be in a crash. And car crashes are the #1 killer of teens. This year, thousands of young people will die in teen car crashes, the equivalent of almost 50 filled school buses. Why? Mostly because of inexperience. Good kids who passed their driver's test, gone, wiped out. A teen's risk of being in a car crash is highest when they first get their license, because that inexperience leads to mistakes. Driver error accounts for 75% of all crashes. They are new drivers, after all. Take driving at night. Second nature to you is relatively new and potentially deadly to your teen. 40% of fatal crashes happen at night, most before midnight. or driving with passengers, you do it safely all the time. But for 16 and 17-year-olds, the risk of death increases 44% with one young passenger, doubles with 2 young passengers, and quadruples when carrying 3 or more young passengers. For speeding, while more than a third of young male driver fatalities involve speeding, many of these crashes occur because the teen was driving too fast for the situation, something that can only be learned through experience. That's not to say teens don't engage in risky driving behaviors. They do. Nearly 1/5 of 16 and 17-year-old drivers killed in crashes have been drinking. More than half of young people killed in crashes were not wearing seatbelts. What about the newest risk? Driver distractions. Just talking on a cell phone makes it 4 times as likely a driver will be in a crash. The research shows it doesn't matter if the driver is talking on a handheld or hands-free device. They are both equally dangerous. And texting is even more risky. Nearly 60% of young people admit to sending and receiving text messages while driving. That can be fatal. Texting while driving increases the likelihood of a crash by at least 8 times. So, what is the best way you, as a parent, can help your new teen driver drive home safely? Stay involved. Be a good example when you drive. Help them learn by making and enforcing rules. And remember, ride with your teen often and have them practice, 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 even after your teen gets their license. The tools you need to help you keep your teen driver safe are at driveithome.org.
Okay. So that video is important because it goes over the practice, 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 and that's something that is extremely powerful for your teens, is to practice as much as possible. They aren't getting enough driving. Being a good driver is not operating the vehicle safely just on their own driving down the road. It's how they interact with everybody else on the road around them. It's not just their driving, it's other people's driving. And that's what makes a safe driver. And the only way they're going to get that experience is driving themselves, or hey, when they're a passenger in the car, put this fabulous thing down and participate in your driving and show them, make some decisions. And I'm going to go through a little bit here, and then I'm actually going to have to take off. I'm very sorry after I do my presentation. So George, I know you have all the other things and in place, but I do have more to share here, but I did want to tell you I'm going to have to disappear. I apologize for that. So teach your teens when they're in the passenger seat, right? As we just discussed, one of the biggest things we have teaching new drivers is where they're looking on the roadway. So talk to them about that. Most new drivers look right in front of them, right? You want to expand their vision and see what's up ahead so they can anticipate what's coming and plan accordingly. It's a powerful step even before they drive. They don't need their permit to do that. Just do it, right, with them as they're learning. I have all these restrictions, but I think Officer Caponero will probably go through these, so I'm going to skip them, but they will be in my handout that I've shared with the panelists. So I'm just going to go through them. They're the violations too. But this is sort of where I come in to help you guys. And car accidents are the leading cause of death for your kids, teenagers. I mean, it's just horrifying. And it's something that I have tried so hard for many years to make sure we give over gifts to your kids to keep them safe, just tools and tips and ideas. And here are some that you can start with. Driver inexperience is probably the biggest reason young people are more likely to get into crashes. Speed for the boys, I will tell you. I'm sure Officer Caponero can talk a little more to that. And the only way to reduce the risk is to get them to gain more experience. It's the only way. I mean, it's the only way. Going back and forth the same place every day to school is great, but it's not getting the exposure to risk that they need in supervised conditions. So they're not doing it unsupervised. So a couple of little things. Be careful with directions, right? I remember when I was learning to become an instructor, Mr. Lewis taught me. He actually also taught me how to drive when I was young, but he taught me how to be an instructor. And I would say, turn left, and boom, of course the kid was turning left. And he goes, no, at the light, turn left. So I had to change my whole verbiage. So that's something you might want to just think about as a parent teaching. Give your teen lots of notice when you want them to do something. For example, rather than saying turn left now, and they are quick response to that, they'll be turning left at the next block, okay? Also, try to use the word right for a direction. So oftentimes we say, yeah, that's right, right, right. Oh, and then they're turning right on you. It just causes confusion. So just to be on top of that, it's a small thing, but sometimes it can be an important thing. Be constantly aware. One of the hardest things as a new driver is for them to be 360 vigilant. They can't be, they're not gonna be. So as the passenger instructor, you're not a passenger, you are their eyes. Put your sun visor down and use the vanity mirror on the back of it. Gives you some sort of visual, right, of what's going on around the car. Correct by asking questions rather than saying things like, you're going to get a speeding ticket if you don't slow down, right? Just sort of maybe ask, oh, what do you think the speed limit is here, right? South Ave, the speed limit changes a couple of times here and there. And why is it this slow? And why? So that's a better way, because then it also makes them responsible for paying attention to it and watching it, okay? Start slow and build up. When you start out with your teen, go to an empty parking lot, spend some time there working the pedals where their feet are positioned, right? A lot of new drivers use both feet. Make sure their left foot, unless they're learning stick, is way over here, and you got the right. And then, you know, go to some quiet residential streets. You might see our cars around in certain areas. We love Hoyt Farm. That's a really safe area because it has a lot of visibility, straight roads behind the Y. There's many places, but you just don't want to end up on a road that they're not ready for. And to be frank, you're not ready to instruct them how to handle it at that moment. So be watchful of that. And that's where the planning ahead is. You know, let your team know the area that they're going to be driving. And let's say, let's work on left-hand turns today. And just do that. You don't have to work, you know, let the other stuff slide a little bit and just work on certain aspects, okay? SIPD is the key to safe driving. It is the defensive driving way to operate a motor vehicle. It's the gift to your kids to keep them safe for the length of their driving careers. SIPD stands for scan, identify, predict, decide, and execute. As simple as that. Think about it as you drive. Think of that SIPD, parents, even just driving the next time you're on your own. How much we do it. We don't even think about it. The teens, new drivers, you guys don't have that yet. You need to work on that skill very intensely. Even as a passenger, you can work on it. So start a discussion with your teen about how to recognize when to apply the brakes. You know, that car up there was slowing down. How do I know it was slowing down? Well, it has a brake lights on. Or what are white lights? A lot of them don't know the white lights mean the car is in reverse. So make them observant to things around them, right? And then by explaining those cues and signals, when it's time to come down, your teen is going to start making the assessments and watching, rather than you just say, slow down. Explain it ahead of time. It will help. The number of times you drive with your teen is more important than the amount. So I'll, you know, some parents, I'll drive 3 hours up to Vermont. That's great. But you really need downtown New Canaan driving. Oh my gosh, it's so challenging. Pedestrians, large vehicles, a lot. So even 15, 20 minutes is going to be fantastic. So don't feel you don't have time. Even if you have 15 minutes, that's good. Okay. Teaching your teen to drive is a harrowing experience for some parents, but if you take the time to prepare, work on the skills little by little, building blocks, form good, strong habits at the beginning, you will make a huge difference in your teens driving right now at the beginning, but even in the future, so they're safe, right? And once they get their permit and they're out there driving, you have to attend a class with them. And that class is important because it just goes over both of you hearing the information and knowledge that's needed at the time that they're starting this journey, okay? And I am so sorry to leave this because I was going to stay right through to the end, but I have just something so crucial that's happening. That
Marie, we appreciate your time tonight. Don't
All right.
worry. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I appreciate it. And I thank you to you all. You guys are amazing. It's a weird time, but we're still here and operating and doing it what we can to make life pretty normal for you guys. So,
Thank you, Marie.
bye.
Bye.
I got to figure out how to leave now. Oh, here we go.
Up in the corner, do you see?
All right. Yeah, I got it.
Hey, leave, it's in the top left. There you go. Okay, so that was Marie Trant from Lewis School of Driving. Now we have Officer Caponera from the New Canaan Police Department. Officer Caponera.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thanks for having me again. It's a little different this year being at home for this instead of at the high school. Hopefully it works out okay. You guys, I don't know if you guys can answer. We do Q&A at the end, but if there's a way for that, I'm happy to stick around. I have a list here of just some stuff I wanted to go over for all the teen drivers out there listening and the parents. One of the things I want to touch on first before I kind of get to some resources I have available for you guys is just some basic kind of like fast facts that I found people a lot of times ask me at various other, while they're in town or trainings or anything of that sort. So I just want to kind of go through that list. The first and most important thing to remember for all the teen drivers out there is that driving is a privilege. It's not a right. What that means is a privilege is something that can be taken away from you by law. A right is something that can't be taken away from you by law. You have the right to free speech. You do not have the right to drive a car. So therefore, there are a lot of rules when it comes to driving a car in the state of Connecticut. In fact, there are over 400 motor vehicle laws in the state of Connecticut alone. So, and there's very few laws to inhibit free speech, with the only few exceptions being perjury and hate speech, for example. That's about it. Other than that, free speech is free speech. So that's the difference. Driving is a privilege, it's not a right. So you really have to try to obey all the rules because there are much bigger consequences for this than anything else. When it comes to motor vehicle laws, the police have a lot of authority and power because we are the ones that patrol the roads, the parking lots, the private roads, at pretty much anywhere. If the offense occurred in the town of New Canaan and we pull you over 20 miles over the line in New York, we can still issue charges on you. If you pull into a house in a garage, and this is a true story from recently where the guy tried to close the door and I ran in after him, that's allowed. I can charge him at that point. Doesn't matter if you're on private property. As long as the offense occurred in an area where I have authority and jurisdiction, I can follow you to the end of the earth within reason. I can't go into Canada, but you get my point. There are many exceptions to the search warrant rule in the state of Connecticut that apply to motor vehicle. So we don't really need a search warrant if we're ever going to search your car for some reason. We just need some basic criteria to be checked. If we have that criteria and we do a search, which will be held up in court as legal, most likely because we don't need a warrant, and we find some sort of contraband or anything that you or even a friend of yours has in the car, please understand as the driver, you are taking that charge. So be very cognizant of who you put into the car with you. If one of your friends has something, chances are you know about it. And if we stop you and we find it, chances are, in addition to your friend, you're going to get the charge as well. A driver has a friend, I just touched on this, but I'll touch on it again. If a driver has friends in the car and that friend has any type of contraband on him, whether it's a weapon or drugs, chances are the driver could face charges as well, even if the driver was 100% innocent. Again, that's because driving is a privilege in the state of Connecticut and not a right. And everything is in the interest of public safety and trying to protect the majority of the vehicles on the road at the sacrifice of certain civil liberties that you might feel that you have everywhere else in the world. DUI, driving under the influence, is for alcohol and drugs and prescription medication, and most of all, marijuana. I now get more DUIs for drugs than I do for alcohol. Doesn't mean we don't get DUIs for alcohol. In fact, we just got one last night. And we just got a drug arrest last night. Both took place in a car. Both were separate. So we do still get them. And a lot of times, the drug offenses are young to older teenagers, 18 to 21-year-olds, sometimes a 16 or 17-year-old. We do have body cameras now. We wear them at all times. They're turned on for the entire incident. From the moment we start executing the car stop, by the time we get out of the car, it's rolling. Everything is uploaded to a central server database. We don't have any ability to edit it or to touch it. That's only the captain of internal affairs who has it. We save it whenever someone starts to say or act in a certain way that is very negative towards them. So stressing this really hard, try to just be professional, behave, be polite, be courteous, because cursing or yelling at me or any other officer will not solve the problem at the scene. Now, you guys are actually pretty good talking to all the teens out there who are listening. We don't really get that from you guys. Once in a while we do. But it does happen, and all of that gets reported into the report. The judges and the prosecutors, they're adults. They can hear those curse words. We put them right in there. It doesn't help a cause if you're trying to reform yourself later on. So just keep in mind, we do wear body cameras, and we do save all footage, and we put all those fancy 4-letter words into our reports. So one of the biggest accidents I get as an officer now, almost 11 years in New Canaan, is where one vehicle driving behind someone else rear ends the vehicle in front of them. They call that, it's a rear end crash. But the common response I get from the vehicle driving behind that hits someone's rear bumper is that the vehicle in front stops short. Okay, so just to clarify this, there is no such thing as a stop short law in the state of Connecticut under any circumstances. The vehicle in front always has the right of way. If any of you guys ski, then you kind of know, because I'm a skier, that when you ski down the mountain, the skier in front of you has the right of way. The vehicle in front driving has the right of way. This protects you as well. So whenever you're driving and someone's behind you, it's very easy for us to assign blame, which we will do to the person that hit the rear end of your car. So my advice to you is always leave enough room. Simple rule, where the rubber of the tire meets the road on the rear tires. If you can't see where the tires meet the road of the car in front of you, you're too close. So back up. Whenever the brake lights go on in the car in front of you, apply your brake lights. You don't have to slam on them, but apply them. Again, even if you did slam on them though, and someone hit you from behind, that person is at fault now. So again, no stop short law in the state of Connecticut. That's probably the biggest one I get for teens, hands down. The other is for an improper left turn. They kind of just went for it, turning into the YMCA, turning onto Farm Road. Once you commit to that left turn, crossing into another lane of travel, you own it 150%. Doesn't matter how fast the other guy was going. If he is going fast, my simple recommendation would just be to wait until he passes and then safely turn left. Again, this is all really basic common sense, and if you guys use that, I promise you'll probably never see me in any capacity that way, which I'm sure is good news for you all. Couple other things. This is more for the parents here, but I do get this a lot, so I touch on it. Kids and seatbelts in a car. What are the rules? What are the numbers? I get this all the time. So really simple. In the state of Connecticut, 7 years old or 70 pounds and less, they must be in a car seat for a child. If they're not, it's a loss of license, whether you're a 40-year-old adult parent or a 16-year-old driving your kid's sister to school. 7 years old or 70 pounds or less, you must have them in a car seat. No exception. Does not matter. If you really need help, call us. We'll try to get someone out there with a car seat to apply for you. A couple other things. Connecticut is a zero quota state. We actually have a law on that. So we keep stats in New Canaan Police on everything, on dog bites, burglaries, break-ins, domestic violence, drug use, suicides, everything. However, we don't keep stats on tickets issued. We keep stats on how many cars are stopped, but we don't keep stats on tickets issued because there's no quota law. So my supervisor is not allowed to ask me ever if I wrote a ticket today. He never has, he never will. I've never offered that. If I choose to write a ticket, that's because I'm trying to prevent that bad driving behavior, but I'm not doing it for brownie points or bonus points. I'm certainly not getting a cut of the ticket. I've actually been asked that. So no, we don't get paid for how many tickets we write. There are no traffic cameras in the state of Connecticut. There are no cameras. There are certain cameras you'll see, but they're for news footage only. We don't use traffic cameras for speed enforcement. There's a law on that as well. So while I certainly don't encourage it, you know, just keep in mind there are no cameras there, but I do get that question a lot, and I'm not here to lie to you guys. I will be honest. So those are kind of the main things I wanted to touch on. I wanted to just do a top 10 of kind of the top 10 basic facts, and I have some basic source material for you guys. Okay, so I touched on one of the top 10 was there's no such thing as stop short, so I've already touched on that. The next one is all driving offenses in the state of Connecticut are adult crimes. No exception. That includes reckless driving, taking a vehicle without permission, DUI. If you are 16 years old and you are a drug dealer, which I'm sure none of you are, you will be treated as a juvenile. Your name will not be in the paper. You will be fully protected by law. If you are a 16-year-old and you get a DUI, you will be brought down to the adult booking. You will be fingerprinted, photographed. You will be treated as an adult. You will go to adult court. And you will be put in with adults because it is an adult crime. It's one of the only exceptions left in the state of Connecticut for adult law. Passenger restrictions will result in a tow and a loss of license. So unfortunately, that's pretty much across the board. You have a friend in the car and they get caught in the car, they're not in trouble. You are in trouble, you take the charge. So don't bring your friends in the car. It's just the safest thing I can tell you because they take no risk and you take it all. There is a zero tolerance for DUI in the state of Connecticut. Standard field sobriety tests, which we administer at the scene if we suspect you've been drinking, are mandatory for all drivers in the state of Connecticut. It's what's called an implied consent state. You are automatically, by driving on the roads, accepting consent to be tested. If you refuse, we will not force the test. We will automatically arrest you for DUI, and the reason will be you refused implied consent. And I've yet to lose a case because someone said, I didn't want to because that was my right. Again, it's not a right, it's a privilege. You are implied consent by driving, whether it's on South Ave, Hoyt Farm, or the Merritt Parkway, it's all implied consent. So just keep in mind that when you guys are driving. There are no cell phones allowed for 16 or 17-year-olds while driving, even if it's hands-free. 16 or 17-year-old caught driving a car, even hands-free, will result in a ticket and a suspension of license. That is in the DMV manual. If your parents are calling you on the way home, tell them to stop until you get somewhere safe and you can call them back. Because 16 to 17-year-olds, even if it's hands-free, can't talk on the phone and certainly can't use it for any other function. Our simple rule for the New Canaan Police is holding the phone implies use. If we see it, we're pulling you over and we're pretty much a 95% ticket for that because pretty much we look at that as a distracted driving and a safety risk for the public as a whole. We pretty much write all tickets for that. Couple things on passenger restrictions. For the first 6 months after your license is issued, the only people allowed as passengers in the car are an instructor, your parents, or a person over 20 years old with at least 4.5 years of driving with a driver's license. So again, first 6 months, the only people allowed in the car with you are a licensed driving instructor or mom and dad, or anyone over the age of 20 who has had at least 4.5 years of driving and has a 4.5-year license on them. For the second 6 months, the only additional passengers allowed are family, and that's any family at that point. Your license says at the bottom an issue date, and that's how we know and determine if you're following that rule when we stop you when we see someone in the car. The curfew for driving in the state of Connecticut across the board is 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. There are exceptions for work or school events such as prom. However, the exception requires you to provide the proof. Bring your prom ticket that night. Obviously, if you're in a tuxedo or dress, I can use a little bit of common sense to figure that out. And I also happen to know when prom night is because we work extra that night. If you're going from work, bring out a printed receipt showing me you were at work, whether it was at Starbucks or anywhere else that you stayed past 11 p.m. But 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Otherwise, it is a curfew violation. It is a ticket. It will be a loss of license. Marie touched on this. You need 40 hours. I would strongly recommend you guys try driving in uncomfortable situations at night when it's raining with someone in the car, of course. On the merit, try to get out of the habit of just circling around town because it's not that way normally. You know, I grew up learning how to drive kind of right near New York City, so I can kind of like serpentine backwards down a road blindfolded, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. But I get why everyone else takes some time. It just does take practice. You need to do 25 questions to pass the test to get your permit, and then you got a road skill test several months later. And unfortunately, like it's been touched on, the #1 cause of death for teens in the state of Connecticut, aged 15 to 19, is motor vehicle crashes. So that's why we take it so seriously. These rules are really meant to protect everyone as a whole, even if it sacrifices certain rights that you felt you were entitled to. We're not trying to be retribution here, guys. We totally get that you're new drivers. If we stop you for going a few miles over, we're usually very flexible. I know I am. I mostly will just maybe make you call your mom or your dad right there and say, hey, you've been stopped, but you're getting a warning. And just be careful for next time. That way they know, so when they get home, mom and dad can talk to you guys. So a couple of things of criteria I wanted to give you. State of Connecticut has a great, the DMV has a great resource guide called Teen Driving Restrictions. I know I gave you a lot tonight. So I'm going to hold up this form. If you just Google State of Connecticut DMV safe driving or teen safe driving, you should find it. So here's the form. That's what it looks like.
Teen driving restrictions.
Okay. This is available at the DMV. Now, this has great resources because it shows you all the things for the learner permit at the bottom here. Then on the second page, it has everything addressing curfew, cell phones, seatbelts, and passenger, the 4 main categories dealing with teen drivers. So this is a great resource. State of Connecticut, Department of Motor Vehicles, safe driving for teens. It's for free. You can print it out. I recommend you guys print it out and go over it with your parents. So second page as well on there. Info for parents, teen drivers, and their passengers, also available on the website. So it looks like this. It's got a couple of just basic trivia facts, kind of things like I touched on here. It explains to you what the rules are, so there's no concern later on that you're not sure what exactly you're allowed to do or not. And then there's one last resource on the website that's pretty good. It kind of talks about the penalties, mandatory suspensions for 16 to 17-year-olds. That way you all understand when you see this, that this is all available to you, to the public. And even if you chose not to review it, it's out there, which is all the state is required to do, is to make it accessible. And you are, again, because of implied consent, you are required by law to follow these rules. Even if you weren't aware of them, that does not count as a legal defense. So there's a lot. I just recommend you guys take your time learning, take your time going over this stuff, and then you'll probably be fine. The majority of teen drivers are great. We just occasionally get them, especially when they have friends in the car, acting a little more aggressive and confident. And one of the things here that's great for the parents listening is it kind of talks to expectations of a teen driver and managing the experience. And I was like, we all hear this stat, but I think it's worth repeating that research shows that the portion of the brain that assesses risk and danger does not fully develop until someone's in their mid-20s. We've all heard of the term Superman complex. Well, teenagers have that in spades, and they're really confident behind the wheel. Some of my highest speeds on Smith Ridge Road, someone going in their 80s and 90s has been a teen driver who only had their license for 6 months. It's a mandatory arrest and a loss of license, and no insurance company is going to insure you after that. The second biggest problem is alcohol in the car. No alcohol, even if it's a sealed can, you are bringing it home for your parents for a barbecue, is allowed for a teen driver under the age of 18. You will get charged and you will lose your license. And again, there will be no insurance coverage at that point because you're just deemed too high of a risk. So it's not just the criminal aspect, which is all we focus on as the police. That's the concern. It's the after effect. It's the fact that you will not be able to get insurance. Once you don't have insurance, you can't drive because every time you get caught driving without insurance, it's a mandatory arrest and a mandatory tow. So there's no getting around that. You need insurance to drive in the state of Connecticut. So just keep in mind, guys, when you see all this, it feels a little overwhelming. It's, again, because it's a privilege and not a right. And as long as you guys just treat it as a mature responsibility, you'll be fine. I'm open for any questions now. If there's a way to do that, I'm not sure.
Do you want to say, let people know they can type them in chat?
Yes, if anyone does have questions, the chat function will be where you could put them, and then we can let them know, let Officer Caponera know. There's a
Okay.
Q&A section.
All right, so click on it because Bonnie had a question.
Okay, so one of the questions we have is, when should we register for driving school? Do we need to wait until our teen has passed her permit test?
What'd you do?
Oh, I didn't do anything.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry.
There we go.
Okay, so yes, you need to have a permit to drive. I'd recommend the moment you get your permit that you register for driving school. And the moment they have their permit and it feels real to them is when you start showing them all this material from this DMV website about being a safe driver. There's also even a contract that you can have your kids sign, and then you sign with them. And every time that maybe they commit a violation, you hold up that contract and you can remind them, well, you agreed to this. You agreed to these rules. So you need to follow these rules because there's a consequence. But yes, I'd recommend signing up immediately. They do offer a lot of extra, training and experience that sometimes is a little bit more that, a parent can offer. And it's good to have that resource.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see.
That's it.
That's it. Right now, that's all we have.
Okay.
Anyone else? No, I guess that's it. Quiet bunch tonight.
It was a very thorough presentation, so.
Yeah, it was.
I
No.
usually scare people too much. I'm not intent. I usually scare everyone. I don't mean to do
No,
that. It's just,
No, we need to
You know.
hear, this is why we all tuned in, and it's all
Mhm.
information that we need, and we'll go to the websites you recommended to get those team restrictions, and we appreciate it. It was great and very informative. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
you're welcome.
And everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. We will again have this posted on the PFA website if anyone wants to rewatch with their child, which might be a good idea. That'll be available. And again, Mr. Brown from Brown, Thayer and Shed Insurance was not able to join tonight, but he did join last year. So you can watch his presentation in full on our PFA website from last year's Teen Safe Driving presentation as well. And if he does have any additional information to provide to us for this year, we will make sure to put anything we have from him on our website. So Officer Caponera, again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we can teach these kids to not give you a headache.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Very good. Then I think we'll end the session and we'll stop recording.